Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Point Forward podcast. Milwaukee Bucks chatter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Jim Owczarski in studio with me. My name is JR Radcliffe. Jim, of course, is the Bucks beat reporter for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Last time we spoke, they'd won 8 of 10. Things were looking up. Giannis was coming back. Wow, everything has changed in a very short period of time. A hard pivot to the depths of despair. It is a four-game losing streak at this point. Giannis back for Boston. That did not go well. Without him, they lost to Chicago. An unforgivable loss against a team that had won nothing in what?
A month.
3 weeks? 4 weeks? Yeah. And they completely collapsed. They lose by a lot in Chicago. I mean, they've lost a lot. What is it, 4 straight losses, and they're all by 15 to 18 points or more. I never like to say embarrassing. I think that's overdone, and I don't think it's correct. That loss against Chicago was one of the most dispiriting losses I think I've ever witnessed as a Bucks fan. And then against the Hawks, a team that is the last, direct competitor for that play-in spot, they go ahead and lose that game too. Jim, it's real bad. It's despairing. Let's start with that. Is it despairing though? Is there still a chance this works out? Because I don't want to operate under my assumption, which is it's way over. Is there still a chance here before we get to some postmortem stuff?
I mean, I've obviously been the more optimistic of the two of us throughout all of this, and I don't think so anymore. I mean, I was willing to go through March 14th because that would have included the Atlanta game we just watched, and it would have ended with another game against the Hawks. The team they are chasing, they would have given them the tiebreaker. There's a game against Orlando in there at home where you would need to win to get the tiebreaker. So they would actually own tiebreakers. Oh, Miami as well, JR.
Yeah.
So you could potentially, after 2 weeks of March, own the tiebreaker over every team in the play-in, which then means you just sort of handle business, win enough, and match your record and you're in.
Right.
And yeah, the Chicago thing, the 27-0 run, I've never seen anything like that in the NBA. And that was really weird. Boston just out-hustled, outplayed them. And that was not a great sign, even with Giannis coming back and, with Giannis back, right? They weren't even really in that game. And the Hawks game, and this is where this turned for me, JR. They go up 16. The bench unit actually is what got them the 16-point lead. The starters were okay, no defense. And you saw in that first quarter all of the things that have doomed Bucks games, fouling, no real effort on defense. The other team is just kind of scoring at will. And yeah, the Bucks are shooting 70%, but the Hawks were 50-40, and obviously 70 is unsustainable. The problem for the Bucks is 50-40 is always sustainable for the other team. And so it was almost like the tortoise and the hare. And sure enough, the starting unit comes back in, and suddenly Jalen Johnson and the Hawks are in the lead. And you just knew it. And then sure enough, third quarter, 10-0 start, 15-2. And this team, JR, earlier in the year would battle back from double-digit deficits. They would, because it's not that big a deficit in the NBA anymore.
No, it's not.
Particularly in the second, third quarter. But this team of late has just not had that will.
Yeah.
They haven't done it. The shots aren't going in, and I think it's a self-fulfilling thing, JR, where they just don't have – the confidence was fragile. Maybe it was regained in that 8 out of 10 because there were close wins. There was late game execution, but clearly it was a fragile thing, and it's been shattered again. And Giannis, after the game is like, well, kind of who are we? Are we just going to wave the white flag now or what? And mathematically they're in it. They could beat Orlando, they could beat the Hawks, they could beat the Heat and still do all the things I just talked about, but it just feels like they're not there, and Doc is now, really moving around rotations and starters and throwing stuff against the wall. And on one hand, we could say, okay, he should do that. But also, it hasn't worked. So, and now you got 21 games. Like, how do you make? How does all that come together? And so, yeah, JR, I just don't see that 18-3 streak or the 21 games left. I don't see 11-10 in here. It's just not, and even 11-10 at this point is not going to be enough. You've got to go, 14-7.
Yeah,
and you can maybe circle 14 wins on the schedule, maybe, but
I wouldn't.
They as Bobby Portis said, the 8-2 was fool's gold,
It was.
And, they were slapped in the mouth by 4 or 3 playoff teams, and then the Bulls game. It just feels like they've kind of let go of the rope.
Yeah, the Knicks loss was forgivable. Boston didn't have Jaylen Brown, so even though Giannis first game back, you'd think they'd be in that game. They weren't, but okay, whatever. First game back. But you cannot lose to the Hawks. Charlotte, part of this problem is that Charlotte, one of those teams that the Bucks were ostensibly chasing in the play-in, well, they've won 6 games. They're on fire. They're above 500 for the first time this season. Con Knippel's going to win Rookie of the Year now, and it's over. Like they're 5 games back again. Mathematically, that's catchable, but no. Charlotte might end up being the 6th seed. I don't even know. But so then it's, well, who are you gonna chase? Atlanta. If you look at their draft situation, they have a pick swap with the Pelicans. It'll be a really nice pick in the upcoming 2026 draft. Their own pick is subject to a pick swap. I think they have another pick later that they might have access to, might not. I'm not quite sure how that late one works. But bottom line is, how Atlanta finishes does not impact their draft future. They're not tanking. Why would they tank?
Yeah, they're trying to win.
They've got nothing to lose for, which is a funny expression. They are trying to win, and Jalen Johnson looks great, and good for him. Nicolay High School and Sun Prairie East alumnus. He's a star this season. But I mentioned that at the last podcast. At the end of the season, you play teams, and I was like, well, who's really going to stand in their way? It's teams that are either going to be in and satisfied, or teams that want to lose games. The problem is I didn't count on what's happening in the middle here, where Atlanta is still a team that is an unfortunate mano-a-mano opponent. If that ends up being what it is.
And Orlando, Miami are trying to win.
Of course they are.
In a very tanky year.
There's 10 East teams that aren't tanking.
There are 10 East teams that aren't tanking.
And then there's the Bucks.
And the Bucks had no intention of tanking. They're not going to tank. Like tanking, just so listeners, and I've been a lot of readers and social media people are like, Bucks should tank. Tanking means you're manipulating the outcome. Yes. You're manipulating your roster, your minutes to lose games. The Bucks are not going to manipulate the roster and games. They're losing just fine on their own.
They are indeed. They're losing just fine on their own. Why is Doc Rivers still here? What is going on? He's behaving. You mentioned this. He's behaving like a coach who doesn't know the rotations that work here at this stage of the season, where he's like trying to throw a bunch of things at the wall. You've got a bunch of bigs in there with Cam Thomas at one point. Like, it's like he doesn't have an idea what to do, and there's 21 games left. It feels like the ship has sailed. I don't understand. Tell me, Jim.
I mean, look, we've brought up his status. I mean, as far back as December, and clearly, ownership is okay with what's going on, and so unfortunately that's a group of folks that don't have to answer questions, I think at this point there's 21 games left. I don't think this is a Denver situation last year where, Michael Malone and Calvin Booth were fired with like 3 games left, and David Adelman almost. I mean, look, the Nuggets probably would have beat the Thunder.
I can't believe they fired
if Aaron Gordon, had a hamstring. I don't see that scenario because in order for the Bucks to be in that spot, they'd have to go like 18-3. Mm-hmm. And then why would you fire the head coach then?
No reason then.
You know what I mean? So, and then if they're 3-18, well, what's So, I can understand some thought of, well, okay, Giannis is back. Ousmane Dieng had some chemistry with him. Makes sense to start Ousmane at the 3 and see what you got in the 22-year-old. Like, okay. But the other stuff is really strange. And again, maybe it is just, you could call it an act of desperation. And maybe that's what you want to see if you're a fan. Like,
yeah, maybe.
They've been so bad. Like, let's try this and see if it works. Or the way you phrase the question is 60 games into the season and you don't have a great handle on who's doing what with whom, and that's not good either. So, yeah, I mean, but the simple answer is ownership clearly is. There's no other explanation to say than they're fine or they're accepting of what's happened this year in season. Now, I guess we'll see what happens in April. Mid-April, late April.
I mean, if he's still here in late April, I'm going to be super puzzled. But.
Yeah, I mean, this is I mean, look, it was a failed
didn't work
experiment. He was hired at 30-13 in January of 2024 to lead that team to the finals. They didn't get out of the first round, and we could whatever. We know why, but it was a failed experiment. And that's look. The wrong decisions were made for a while now, and the Bucks will have a chance to reset. I think, if there isn't a change, I think it's fair to say there's a change. There should be a change after all of these sample sizes and different roster constructions. If there isn't, then I really don't know what's happening at the ownership level. But again, that's I guess something we'll have to wait to see in mid to late April.
If I'm Adrian Griffin, I'm sitting here thinking, I had this team 30-13. You lost in the first round of the playoffs, and then you missed the playoffs for the first time in a decade after that, which is where they're headed. Like, what? Why did you fire me? I mean, we all know why. The problem was hiring him in the first place and then needing to pivot, but still, it looks very bad.
And look, I understand. When Jay Crowder talked to me a few weeks ago, and look. Disgruntled employees often say a lot of stuff, and it's easy to sort of wipe away guys like that. But, his view was, it wasn't the best under Griff, but, you should have let us finish
Try it out.
We were 30-13. Just let us do the thing. We figured out a way to play and to win games despite his issues. He's like, maybe we would have lost in the first round. Maybe Giannis would have got hurt again. And maybe it would have played out. Chris gets hurt. Maybe it would have played out the exact same way, right? He's like, but at least you wouldn't have had this situation, which Jay said, you change a coach that wondered why he was taking the job, and they immediately went 2-7. Mm-hmm. And that set the tone for us that year. And we could argue, looking back, it's kind of set the tone for his tenure.
Yeah. Can you pinpoint what's not working in terms of if there's a scheme thing or whatever? He didn't forget how to coach. He's a championship coach. He's been around. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's worked really well with Hall of Fame players before. He has found ways to win in the regular season. His thing was that, he doesn't win in the playoffs. Well, the Bucks aren't even going to get there. And certainly this last playoff round, you could point to that. But no Giannis. Come on. That's just not the same thing. So is there some philosophical thing? I guess I'm kind of looking to the recurring question of how he plays Miles Turner. Is there something about his system that just isn't applying to the personnel here that you can pinpoint at all?
I don't. We get to talk about is there a system? Is there an identity?
That's a good point. Yes.
And so,
his values maybe more than the system.
It's weird because individually, Ryan Rollins owes a lot to Doc Rivers. Mm-hmm. Kevin Porter Jr. owes a lot to Doc Rivers.
Absolutely, yeah.
To a degree, AJ Green does. In terms of just, AJ finally playing, right? And, the Miles thing has just baffled me throughout the year. I don't know I don't know if Doc just didn't like him as a player, as a guy, just didn't know what to do with a more athletic five. I don't know. I haven't gotten a good answer from him this entire season on what's going on with Miles. Things that started well and made sense, like Kyle Kuzma as Giannis's direct sub, that went away after 12 games, even though they couldn't defend, but offense was really good, and that made just rotational sense, and then that was scrapped, and you know, I don't know where Gary Trent went. Look, he had a bad year starting shooting wise. There's slumps. There's things like that. Like, I don't know. It just whatever it is, be it systems or schemes or switching things up or you know putting Miles in a drop, even though he has said consistently like he's not a drop center, like Bobby's not a drop, Bobby's not a rim protector. Like this is that thing, JR, we talked about. Like, is there a disconnect with John Horst's vision of this roster and what he built versus what Doc has done with it? We don't know because John hasn't talked. You know, despite many requests.
Well, and he wouldn't say so otherwise. He wouldn't be like, yeah, this isn't the...
No.
I mean, maybe after Doc is gone, but even then, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's not his... But at least we could have got some kind of answer out of it. Yeah. I don't know. And, yeah, it just... Look, I went back and read sort of why Doc Rivers was hired. And one of the biggest issues was that 23-24 team that was 30-13 didn't have an identity. Like they felt, even though they were smashing teams with this offense, like the championship guys on that squad, Giannis, Brooke, Chris, Bobby, Pat Connaughton, like what they wanted was something defensively. Like they weren't quite ready to admit, like, okay, maybe we just got to be, at that time, like the Denver Nuggets. Like we're going to be a top 2 offense and like a 15-17 defense. And then when we get to the playoffs and we can game plan, like they weren't ready for that yet. Or maybe they were, but they needed a guiding hand to direct them into, no, actually, guys, like we have Dame now. We're going to be limited. We need an offense. Like whatever. It didn't happen. And like here we are, you know, 2.5 years later, and it's still, who are we? What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? What's the mission? You know, so it almost doesn't matter. Like, I mean, yes, scheme and plays like that can go into identity, but it's basketball, Jared. Like teams all run the same stuff. Like it's really more just like what you emphasize, what you drill, what you coach, what are you disciplined in, and this team has had like you can't answer those questions, despite having, you know, Vic is now a try-hard superstar, you know, but like up until Vic and maybe some of these younger guys, like the try-hardest superstars of them all, and Giannis, right? I mean, even he's had times out there where he hasn't looked, maybe this is the health, but even he hasn't looked engaged all the time. So, yeah, that's just, I don't know. The mission was to win and to find it, rediscover a winning culture or reshape it or whatever, and it just hasn't happened. And like that's that you're right. Like you thought a guy 24 years in at that point would have been able to do that, and it just didn't click with any version of this team in the last 2.5 years.
I want to put a pin in where Giannis stands in all of this because you'd mentioned also John Horst hasn't talked. The owners haven't talked. That's typical. That's not unusual. Lori Nickel, our colleague, again wrote a column about how problematic that can be at a time like this when the franchise has questions to answer. And she also wrote about we use the term fool's gold, like the very logical response to a team that is not on a playoff trajectory. Wouldn't they then be better off focusing on the future, not playing Giannis? Now, I think you and I agree that they're not going to do that. Of course, they're going to play Giannis. He's under contract. He's going to want to play. He's healthy. You've got to get him out there. You got to have him out there. You got to keep him happy, quite honestly. So that's kind of, in my mind, a non-starter. But, what did you think of her article and kind of just this no man's land that the Bucks are in right now? A very bad place to be.
I mean, it's a bad place to be in the sense that it's unfamiliar territory. 10 years in, like they weren't supposed to be this bad.
No.
But, playing Giannis was a non-starter. If he was going to be healthy, he was going to play. And there's layers to that because, again, we talk about manipulating losses. Like, if the intent, and again, we don't know this. We talked about this in all the pods about the Giannis trade rumors. Until I'm told otherwise, the intent of Wes Edens and John Horst are to continue to try to win championships with Giannis.
Of course.
And so if that's still the goal, you cannot try to lose or hold him out against his will, because then it's over. And now maybe
it's over.
And that would have been, well, see, that's the thing. Like, I think if they wanted to do that, it's a calf strain.
Yeah.
They could have said,
right.
hey, buddy, like, we really don't want you to tear your Achilles. We don't like what we see in this whatever. We're going to hold you out another 2 weeks.
You're absolutely right.
It's
almost a sign that it's not over, that Giannis is still in on this.
So, and that's what he said, when he talked to me in early February, JR. Like, he wants to be here. If they're in, he's in. This year has not gone well for a variety of reasons. It's 1 year out of 9. Like,
yeah,
in a way, it's almost inevitable in pro sports. Like, Boston right now is the outlier in terms of just a team that's just never had a dip for whatever reason, even with catastrophic injury. Like, the Warriors have had catastrophic injuries and went to the lottery, right?
Just pulling up the Warriors, because I wanted to see.
Yeah, the Warriors.
I mean, they missed the playoffs 3 out of 5 years. We forget that.
I mean, right. And
won a finals in between.
And that's not even counting the lottery year, where
Right.
they won like 16 games.
Yeah.
So Boston's the outlier. Giannis is going to play. Like, Laurie was, I think, right in that. Look, on one hand, ownership, like Wes Edens doesn't have to make a statement. John doesn't have to make a statement. Would have made things easier at the trade deadline? 100%. We've gone over that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you don't talk, no one can hold you to anything, parse it. You don't look bad later. I mean, but what it does is it just creates a vacuum that inherently is going to get filled by someone or something, or outlets, or look, we're filling it.
We sure are.
ESPN's going to fill it. Doc and Giannis are going to fill it. So it'll be really interesting to see. But she was right on, and Bobby is right on. Bobby, understood what it is, and to the broader point of the fool's gold, fool's gold's fine if you can somehow sift out the real gold by the time you get to the playoffs. Again, we mentioned the problem is almost the entire East, 10 out of 15 teams or 11 out of 15 teams are trying to win. Mm-hmm. This is not the West.
No.
And the Bucks, unfortunately, lost 3 times to Washington and once already to Brooklyn. They've lost to the teams that are trying to lose, and can't beat any of the teams that are trying to win. So, but it's not the worst place. I guess we'll go back to the draft pick situation, JR. Look, let's say they try their best and they still finish 11th. They're going to have, 13% chance of a top 4 pick. The Pelicans thing, we'll see how that flushes out. They haven't had a lottery pick like that since Thon Maker. They haven't had a high lottery pick since Jabari Parker. Would they actually get it right? I don't know. I mean, track record says probably not.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Colin Knippel. People assume to a degree, well, Giannis is going to want out if they get a top. Giannis would love to play with Colin Knippel. You tell him you got that, or VJ Edgecombe is helping a playoff team. If this class is truly filled with those dudes, they're going to help you win. High-end talent. Giannis is going to be cool with that. You know what I mean? If it's the right guy. And then let's say it doesn't go their way and they're picking 9 to 12 or whatever, Can they make the pick? Sure. Maybe it's a good pick. Again, recent history shows they've struggled there. Maybe you trade that then. Maybe that's part of a 26 and 31 package for the next star, and you reboot and we do it. And John Horst, if there is one thing, if I want to knock him for the drafts, you can't knock him for the roster building. He knows what to do around Giannis. He knows how to acquire talent, and he's going to have money and draft picks to do so, JR. So, that's they're not it's no man's land for this year. Not that it doesn't suck for Bucks fans or for the team, but
it could be temporary.
Yeah, I don't see a prolonged issue here unless they trade Giannis and they decide to, put a bunch of flotsam together with draft picks out in 2031 and 32, and then you're back in like Bulls play-in land for a while. And I don't know if, and I personally, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to rush that process when you have a guy who can help you be better than that.
I look at the Celtics, and it's kind of frustrating because, by the way, Jason Tatum is going to play now on Friday, it looks like. They got Jaylen Brown, but these guys aren't, like, they're not special. Peyton Pritchard is suddenly... But somebody who was it that was like, we got to give him MVP votes or something, something absurd, whatever. But like he is scoring 17 points per game, and I mean Derek White's always been good, but Neemias Keita, like, is that? I mean, I'm not saying that right, am I?
Yeah, no, Neemias
Keita, Sam Hauser for Wisconsin sports fans, like. It's not like Boston.
Hugo Gonzalez is.
Hugo Gonzalez, who apparently is awesome. I'm not gonna lie, Jim. Straight up, had never heard of Hugo Gonzalez until he played the Bucks.
Dunked on Giannis.
Till he dunked on Giannis. It was like, this is some guy is he a two-way player? Who is Hugo Gonzalez? Boston has a bunch of flotsam too, except they have won twice as many games as they've lost. I know it's doable, and I know John Horst is capable of doing it. It's like he was wrong about everybody on this roster. He guessed wrong.
Well, this goes back to, I think, the coaching issue.
Absolutely,
like
true.
you can't line up the Bucks roster player for player with Boston, Denver, particularly the 16 games that Jokic was out, because it wasn't just him. It was Aaron Gordon was out, and Cam Johnson was out, and Jamal Murray was like the zombie Nuggets. Or the Phoenix Suns. We talked about this a couple pods ago. Like, you can't, like, and so what happened in there? I mean, maybe John Horst was wrong. Maybe, like, all these guys were supposed to be try-hard guys, and truly they were not. That's a possibility. Mm-hmm. I'd venture to say that I know Giannis and Bobby, so that's not true. Miles Turner, I watched Miles Turner up close a lot. Go to the finals. Game 7.
Looked
like, awesome. He's not even here. So Miles is not like a pack-it-in dude.
Sure.
Ryan Rollins is AJ Green. Like, I mean, yeah. And so Boston has an identity. Boston has a style of play that's mandatory. And you buy in or you don't. And they have guys who buy in. Hugo Gonzalez, in the opening minutes of that game, darts around Miles Turner for layup and an one. He dunks over Giannis because it's a defensive rebound Giannis doesn't jump for. Mm-hmm. And Hugo Gonzalez jumped. And so we talk about, like, the winning habits and stuff, and Giannis had talked about that. You remember, that's such a cliche under Bud. But you are what you emphasize. I mean, look, Giannis is not infallible. How often does he jump for defensive rebounds? I mean, Miles is not a leaper. Miles is not a great defensive rebounder. This goes back 11 years
this is who he is.
Indiana. So it's frustrating for Bucks fans, but, Bobby, I don't know, maybe 31. He doesn't get off the ground like he used to, but, could Ryan Rollins crash like that? Defensively, or maybe. Was he ever asked to? Was he coached to? I don't know. So, it doesn't matter who plays for Boston because obviously they're NBA players. Clearly, they have skill sets that allow them to be, but they are. They just haven't. They know who they are. They play their way no matter what. They've lost. We're recording this. They got pounded by Charlotte by like 30 points.
Destroyed. Absolutely. With Jaylen Brown playing on top of it.
They've lost 20-something games. They've lost enough too. You know what I mean? Losses happen. Blowouts happen.
Charlotte's on one, man.
But they just kind of do the thing. And to Charlotte's point, Charles Lee, former Bucks assistant, won a title under Bud, won a title under Joe Mazzulla. Charles has set. It took a while, especially with LaMelo being like such a wild talent and dude. But like, Khan is a fit, and Brandon Miller's a fit, and Moussa Diabate is running around fighting all the Pistons and like getting 12 offensive rebounds a game. Like there's a role there, and an identity there. That isn't LaMelo shooting 40-foot one-footers anymore. And so, that just was never established here. And again, it's failed. Everyone's got a hand in it. GM, coach, players. It all comes together when you win, and it all comes together when you lose. Who shoulders the most blame? Hard to say, but I think that's the difference, JR, is you see the Boston game for sure was one where you're like, that's a team that knows who it is and what it does, and that's just what they do all the time because there's no other option. You will not play for Joe Mazzulla or Brad Stevens will move you. And that's just, the Bucks had that for a long time. And so now looking forward, they're going to have to try to rediscover it.
Charles Lee should be head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Oops. It's so fun watching the Hornets play. I mean, they just are having such a great time. They harness that 2010 Fear the Deer Bucks energy where, they're a little scrappy, but also they're more so than that team. There's tons of talent there too. You're just breaking down, they're going to be excellent. And right now they're ahead of schedule. It's super fun to watch.
They look like the Pacers 2 years ago.
Yeah, excellent comparison.
Because it's they're going to either be a play-in team or maybe, as you said, I think the 76ers are struggling here. Maybe they get the 60, whatever it was. The Pacers, remember, all of a sudden they're in the conference finals.
Right.
And they're like, oh, wait a minute. They were 20 games over 500 from January on.
Yeah.
The Hornets are in that.
They're a tale of two seasons.
And oddly, though, the Bucks, that's a team the Bucks beat 3 out of 4 times.
Different. That was a different
figure.
time, though. They played them early in the season.
What's funny, though, is Giannis caught crap because every time they beat them, they were close games. It was overtime.
Yeah.
And Giannis, after each one, said, Charlotte's a good team. And it was so funny because I'd heard this. People were laughing. I'm like, what do you mean Charlotte's a good team? You're just trying to make you guys look better. And,
They are a good team.
Yeah.
They're fun.
I mean, some of that had to do, he knows Charles. And some of those assistants. He probably saw what was coming.
Right.
But yeah.
That's a team I'll be pulling for in the postseason. I mean, the Wisconsin connection has a little to do with it. I'm not going to lie, but Con Knippel, now the odds-on favorite, officially odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year. But enough about the Hornets. What is Giannis's role in all of this? He's only been back 2 games. He's played well. Looks great.
Yeah, he looked amazing.
Especially against Atlanta. He looked incredible. And Boston too. He looked incredible. Not Boston. Yeah, Boston. Yeah. What is his place here? Because we've talked a little, we kind of hinted around that this just hasn't been his best season when he's out there healthy. Certainly the injury stuff has limited him as well. But there might be a little bit of a disconnect with him. I don't want to blame the best player on the team for not being better when the team is doing poorly. But it has maybe felt that way at times. I don't know how you feel about it because he has looked so good coming back. I don't know if that lingers at all.
So, I mean, he's still under minute restriction. So we're still on this weird stat. It's not a weird stat. It's the truth. He has not been fully healthy since November 15th.
Brutal.
Either because he got hurt, was playing through hurt, or under a minute restriction. Because that's limited. If you're under a minute restriction, you're limited in some way. So November 15th, he said last night, again after Atlanta, he's I've played 32 games.
Yeah.
This whole thing was built around Giannis playing 65 to 70 games and being awesome. Not more awesome, just awesome, his regular self, and see where it goes. The one thing they needed was 65 to 70 games, and right now they've got 32. And 32 where 20 of them are compromised.
Yeah, they have a losing record in those games.
20 of them are compromised, and 3 of which he left early. So it's even less than 20.
28.
In the 12 that he was healthy, 32.5 points, 12 rebounds, 7.5 assists, and they were on 48 win pace.
Sure, yeah.
But that was back in November. And so, yes, he has a role in this largely because he hasn't been available or healthy. And frankly, even Giannis, Giannis at 26 minutes could win you games the previous 3 years because you had the high-level secondary talent. They hoped Kevin Porter would be that. And in fairness to Kevin, he has missed more games than Giannis, by the way. When he's been healthy, his numbers are stupid good. Really good. 19 points and 8 assists and 6 rebounds and 2, like, crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
But he's missed more games than Giannis.
Yeah.
He's tried to play through some injuries, and then finally he's out again with knee inflammation. But with the oblique strain, JR, from the game in LA, he got hurt. He played 3 more with it before being sat down. You see, not good. This knee has been bothering him. You saw the 3 games before he sat down, not good. Like, he's a guy who clearly needs to be 100% to play.
Sure.
And then, again, whatever's going on with Miles Turner, like, that he was supposed to be, like John Horst said it, he was supposed to be a guy you could run stuff through to help you, and that just never materialized. So Giannis has a role. Look, they lost 2 Wizards games, or all 3, with him playing. We've talked about he was disengaged in December. There were games he's played where we could question how invested was he, you know. Was that because he was hurt? I don't know. Was he upset with everything? I don't know. Maybe a little bit of everything, you know. Unfortunately, we never got a chance to ask him in those moments because either A, he got hurt in the game, and then he was gone for 4 weeks, and you're not going to go back and relitigate, you know, something 10 games ago. So, yeah, I think going forward, so now it's important for him to be healthy and finish the year and get back to looking like himself. He even said this last night, JR. He's like, you know, for the first time in my career, I'm like trying to be perfect. He's like, I've never played that way. And he's tried to find a voice leadership-wise. He has smashed every button vocally, like from ripping the coaches, ripping his teammates, you know, he's tried everything. He's ripped himself. And so now that there's nothing to really play for other than to go 14-7, I think he's trying to figure out, like, what does that look like? And maybe what that looks like is me being healthy and going all out and doing what I can in my 26 minutes or 28 minutes. And hopefully that's enough, because that's the one thing we haven't seen since November. So I think he's just as flummoxed as all of us, JR, with what to do, how to do it, what it's meant. I guess if there's good news, he's not supposed to play any Greek national team basketball this summer, I don't believe. His body really clearly could use a rest. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine he's going to play back-to-backs. They've got like 3 or 4 left. I mean, maybe under 25 minutes you can. But that's clearly the goal. Make sure he finishes the year without any other muscle strains, and he's feeling good about his game and where he's going. And then, well, then we can reboot all this stuff. I believe he'll be back because, again, until told otherwise, they're going to still try to keep him, keep winning around him. So if that's the case, you've got Giannis feeling some kind of way about only playing 50 games and healthy, which would be, you know, everything for this team.
Yeah. You know, that's just kind of the unspoken thing, is that we've been on a run here where Giannis hasn't been healthy. I mean, it was at the playoffs, and, you know, he's still obviously playing full seasons of basketball. He played a ton last year, but at some point, you know, that's what happens when you get into your 30s and you play the way he plays. Like, what can they count on, like, you know, theoretically over the next few years if Giannis stays? Can they count on him playing 50 games a year? That seems, or not 50, hopefully 50, geez, but...
No, 65, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's important to him, is to be eligible for all the awards.
And can he do that? It's not a slam dunk that he can. You know, it's not a guarantee, so that's also something the Bucks have to consider. What are you watching now as the season goes down the wire? We talked about Kevin Porter. What's his role next year? I think that's obviously still very much up in the air if he comes back. Obviously, Giannis, is he going to be happy? I mean, that's the big story and will be forever. Right, yeah. But, like, what else interests you in these last 20 games?
So, Giannis aside, you know, I think even now Kevin Porter, like, Doc didn't sound, I mean, he'll remind us he's not a doctor, a real doctor, but to have your surgically repaired knee really swell up again to the point where it sounded like he's undergoing some testing, meaning Kevin Porter Jr., you know, that doesn't sound great. So now so nothing really changed from our last discussion with Kevin. So go back, listen to the last Point Forward podcast on Kevin. So for me, Ousmane Dieng, John Horst, to his credit, has hit with Rollins and AJ Green, and he hit with Kevin Porter Jr. Let's find out if Usman is the real deal next to Giannis. And we don't know. It's a very small sample size. It's looked pretty good. Giannis likes the way he plays. And so there's that. Ryan Rollins is still – it's funny because he's like 4 years in, but he feels like a rookie because it's his first full season. And again, his role has been just through no fault of his own or even the head coach. Like, he's been all over the map with what he's been asked to do. This is where, he had 9 assists at halftime. That's really not his game. Like, he is not yet a half-court playmaker. Like, he dribbles a little too much in those instances, maybe gets caught, doesn't know what to do. But if you give him the ball in the open court, he had this great defensive rebound. Giannis fills the center of the lane. Rollins on the wing, reads it perfectly, shovel pass to Giannis. 2 steps, like, perfect, there was a moment, one assist that I liked that I guess you could say was like a Ryan Rollins assist, was late in the shot clock. He starts to dribble, and you're like, uh-oh, we're gonna 7 dribble into a 20-footer.
Sure.
And he started doing it, and he got a little bit of help from an Atlanta defender, shoots at AJ Green, catch and shoot 3. I mean, great creation.
Yeah.
And recognition of that space. Like, that would be really interesting to see with Ryan, because I think there's been times where he's had high assist games, and there's these times where he just gets stuck. So I'm kind of watching, okay, if Kevin's out and Ryan is finally playing with Giannis for, let's say, the whole rest of the way, can he be that guy? And then that maybe answers some questions about what you do with Kevin.
Of course.
And so those are, I'd say, Usman and Ryan Rollins, because after that, like, it's really then it comes to coaching. Like, if Doc is back, I mean, I don't know why Gary Harris or Gary Trent would opt back in. Gary Harris might opt back in anyway because
who knows with him?
He just he's got a deal. We know Torian's coming back because he's had a neck surgery. Like, why would he not take a guaranteed deal? Can
we blame this whole thing on not having Torian Prince? Can we get away with that?
I mean, it was an underrated injury.
It was underrated. I don't think.
I mean, he was a 41% 3-point shooter.
Yeah. I don't think we can quite pull it off, but I'm kind of tempted.
I mean, it's like 20. I mean, they were like, he was never going to fill the non-Giannis minutes with a bunch of points, but he was best. So yeah, I'm going to go young guys: Usman Jang, Ryan Rollins, especially with some of that playmaking stuff. And then after that, it's really because I don't know what they're doing with Miles. Jericho's not going to suddenly learn how to shoot. We know who Kyle Kuzma is, and
got benched.
Gary Harris, Kyle and DMP CD, and then he played great the next game, handling the ball like doing. Hey, guess what? He subbed in for Giannis, and
they didn't miss a beat.
It was like the first 12 games of the season, and it makes you wonder. I mean, obviously Giannis missed a lot of time, but again, maybe what I'm just. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
You got to go with the 2 young guys and see what happens with them, especially if they're playing minutes with Giannis.
Yeah. All right, Jim. I think that does it. I think we've given as much a postmortem as we can for a body that isn't quite yet cold, because we can't say for certain, but it's kind of looking that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part for them, is they're playing teams that are trying. Like, they've got 2 against the Jazz, 2 against Brooklyn, 1 against Indiana. Okay, so there's
these wins,
5.
Milwaukee, yeah,
right. And Indiana's going to try hard. Well, actually, no, Indiana. I would have put a circle around that Indiana game
because of Miles,
and just because, like, Rick Carlisle and the Pacers hate. But now that they had that Ivica Zubac trade where they have to get a top, like, even the Pacers are trying to lose that game. So that's 5 wins that they should have for teams who are actively trying to lose. The problem is Brooklyn was actively trying to lose when they beat the Bucks by 45.
That's right.
And Utah is manipulating losses. They do not want to win those games. So
they sent doctors to check on Lauri Markkanen because they didn't believe it.
So I just mentioned, so there's 21 left. Mm-hmm. Those are 5 wins. Like even if the Bucks start 0 for 12, those teams are going to try their hardest to also go 0 for 12.
Yeah.
So let's just say, even for as bad as the Bucks have been, let's just say those are 5 wins. So can they go 9 and right? What's my math?
10. Oh, out of 21 left?
Yeah. They need 14. They need to go 14 and 7. Mm-hmm. So can they go 9 and 7 in the other 15?
Absolutely not. I don't think.
Because
they did win 8 of 10. They've done that. So it's
they did beat Orlando. And so like when Bobby said it was fool's gold, like they did beat Orlando at home. They did beat Oklahoma City at home. And yeah, Shea and Jalen didn't play, but trust me, the Thunder still try really hard. Like, so the Bucks didn't just beat like tanking teams in that stretch. They clearly can't beat playoff teams. And so like, they're probably going to lose to the Spurs. 2 against the Clippers. The Clippers are still trying hard because they have no incentive to lose, even though they're Memphis. Memphis is another tanker. They're 6
tanking.
wins.
Yep.
So can they go 8 and 5?
8 and 7.
8 and 7. See, I can't even do the math. Can they go 8 and 7 against teams that are relatively trying to win, or?
The answer is no.
No, they can't. And this is how we start. Like this, like they can't.
Maybe, but it's not feeling.
Maybe if like the last 2 weeks of April, Giannis can play 35 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's when you got a Memphis and 2 Brooklyn games, and then that Philly game to end the year. And you just never know where a team is.
Yeah, at the end of the year, destiny could be locked in for a lot of teams.
There's no reason for Joel Embiid to play or Paul George to play.
Right.
Tyrese Maxey to play if they're sort of set into whatever seed they're in, play-in or otherwise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's, but how we started, I don't see 8 and 7.
Not to distill it down to one game, but I feel more comfortable in that conversation if they don't get blown out by Atlanta at home. The team they're chasing at home, just totally blown out in the second half.
Yeah, and they've got 5 more matinee games, and Doc Rivers and I went back and forth on matinees in Chicago, which was a matinee. And I was like, Doc, you're 1 and 6 in matinees, and you're losing by like 30. And he first tried to wave it away, and then admitted, well, it's a concern because this is a team that really uses shoot-arounds for game planning and walkthroughs. So you got 5 more matinees, one of which is Atlanta. So maybe those are 5 losses. So there's your 6 tanking wins. There's your 5 losses.
Now what do you do in between?
Can you go 2 and 3 in the other games?
It all comes down to this.
Right?
It all comes down to this.
That means, can you beat the Phoenix Suns twice?
Yeah, well.
And honestly, probably not, because they try hard. Oso is going to, dunk all over guys.
Phoenix is another team that looks just like the Bucks. Why they're good, why aren't the Bucks?
Right.
It's very similar.
No.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
All right, well, Jim will follow all of the exciting developments here at jsonline.com. We will, of course, be back with another episode of the Point Forward podcast, and we will talk to you guys again next week. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah. Do it again soon.